Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into a question that's shaking up the business world. Is employee happiness actually profitable? We're going to follow the data and see if a happy workforce really does translate to a healthier bottom line. So let's just get right into it. For the longest time, workplace well-being was seen as, a kind of soft, fluffy topic, a nice to have. But now, a whole wave of new research is forcing leaders to take this question seriously. We're talking about real financial urgency here. It's not just about feeling good anymore. It's about performing well.
To really get a handle on the stakes, let's first talk about the cost of being unhappy. When an employee walks out the door, the cost to replace them can be staggering, up to 200% of their annual salary. Think about that. That's not some small HR line item. That is a massive and frankly avoidable financial drain on the business.
Okay, so let's start with the 30,000-foot view. What does the evidence at the company level actually tell us about this link between well-being and financial success? It's time to follow the money.
First, we need to get familiar with a key metric economists use called Tobin's Q. Don't let the name scare you. It's actually a pretty simple idea. It's basically a ratio of what Wall Street thinks a company is worth compared to what its assets are actually worth on paper. So a high ratio means the market sees something special there. Intangible value, like a great reputation, or, as we're about to see, maybe a really happy workforce.
And wow, the data here is pretty striking. Researchers looked at over 1,700 public companies and found this incredibly clear link. As employee well-being goes up, the company's market value goes right up along with it. The trend is just, it's unmistakable.
But look, market value is one thing. It's what people think you're worth. What about actual, real-world profitability? For that, we turn to something called return on assets, or ROA. This tells you how good a company is at using what it has, its buildings, its cash, all its stuff, to generate cold, hard profit.
And yep, you guessed it, the data shows the exact same connection to the bottom line. It's simple. Happier companies are more profitable companies. The study even found that just a 1-point increase in employee happiness was linked to about a 1% rise in return on assets. That is a seriously significant financial impact.
Now, this brings us to that classic chicken or egg question, right? Does happiness lead to success, or does being successful just make people happy? Well, the data here gives us a pretty big clue. It shows that employee well-being scores from before the pandemic actually predicted how well a company would do financially after the pandemic hit. This suggests that a happy workforce creates a more resilient, more robust organization that can handle massive shocks and still succeed.
So here's the kicker. Could you actually make money investing based on this? Well, the researchers ran a simulation to find out. They created a well-being portfolio made up only of stocks from companies with the highest happiness scores. And over 3.5 years, that portfolio didn't just do well, it actually outperformed the S&P 500. It seems the market might be seriously undervaluing happiness as a real financial asset.
Okay, so we've seen that it works on the big picture company level. But now let's zoom in a bit. How does it work? What are the actual specific pathways that turn well-being into better business performance?
Researchers have basically boiled it down to 6 key channels that connect an individual's happiness to the company's success. It turns out happier employees are more productive, they build better relationships, they're more creative, they're healthier, and they are way easier to recruit and, this is the big one, to keep. Let's touch on each of these.
And the data behind every single one of these pathways is pretty compelling. We see that happier employees aren't just a little more productive. They're more creative problem solvers, they have better health outcomes, which means less burnout and fewer sick days. And so importantly, a culture of well-being acts like a magnet for top talent, and it puts a stop to that revolving door of costly turnover. Every one of these things directly boosts a company's financial strength.
All this evidence, it's really driving a massive shift in how we even think about what a company is responsible for. We're seeing this move away from an older model to one that puts people right at the very center of the business.
For a really long time, the whole conversation was about something called corporate social responsibility, or CSR. And this was all about doing good on the outside, caring for the planet, donating to charity, being a good neighbor in the community. The focus was totally on external stakeholders.
But now, a new idea is really starting to take hold. Corporate Humanistic Responsibility, or CHR. This whole framework argues that a company's #1 duty, its first responsibility, is to its own people. The logic is so simple. A truly healthy organization has to start from the inside out.
So what's the real difference here? Well, you can think of it like this.
CSR is often about what a company does with its profits after it makes them. CHR is about how a company makes its profits in the first place. It's about building an environment where people can thrive, which then becomes the engine for success that benefits everybody else. It's a huge shift from responsibility as a nice add-on to responsibility as the core of the business itself.
So, the evidence is pretty darn clear. Investing in your employees' happiness isn't a cost, it is a powerful performance driver. But how does a company actually start to measure this stuff and manage it?
Well, you can't manage what you don't measure, right? That's why smart companies are turning to key metrics to really get a pulse on well-being. This includes things like the Employee Net Promoter Score, which basically asks, would you recommend working here? And it also includes hard numbers like turnover and absenteeism rates. It's all about getting direct, honest feedback on the health of your culture. At the end of the day, all of this comes back to a simple but really profound truth, captured perfectly by this quote from John Milton. Our workplace environment has a huge impact on our mindset, and that mindset, in turn, drives our performance. A company literally has the power to create a heaven of engagement and purpose or a hell of stress and burnout.
So, where does this leave us? Well, the data we've looked at today strongly suggests the answer is yes. The connection between well-being and business value is real, it's measurable, and it's even predictive. And as companies fight for talent and for market share, creating a genuinely happy place to work, well, it might not just be a choice anymore. It might be the single most important competitive advantage you can have.